Boys and girls, hello, and welcome to the Gab fam. It's a pleasure to see you. So, what did I want to tell you guys about? Well, I have, of course, been working on many things. If you have been wondering where the Gabs has been, some of you might have been wondering that, you can go to a couple of other channels where I have been. I have been at Gab Life a couple of times. That's one of my other channels, which some people didn't even know about. That's how bad my advertising is. Hello. And I've also been at Real Gabsmack Liran at Instagram, and of course YouTube at Gabsmack. So you can see different videos there that you haven't seen on Gabsmack, and there's always more there. I'll be doing some Speaking Human stuff and talking about Imam Tawhidi on YouTube. In my case, if you go read a sample of the book, it's free at realspeakinghuman.com, or if you look at Real Speaking Human at Gabsmack on YouTube, you will, in my case, you'll notice it was way better. Hey, Mr. Schmidt, so good to see you. So let's jump into it. There's a few things that you'll find. One is an obsession with literal meanings of phrases, but someone with autism doesn't know that they're being obsessive with literal meanings because there is only that meaning. I was diagnosed at 32 and 11 months in 2014 over a period of 2 weeks, and it came out with savantism as well. So welcome aboard to all the new people. If you would like to know stuff so that I don't bore the other people, I will answer as many as I can, but at the same time you can also get a lot of detail from the Autism playlist or the Speaking Human playlist, both on my Gabsmack channel at YouTube, or you can also go to realspeakinghuman.com and see samples of the book. So am I doing the audiobook? No. Iran. No, I didn't. I mentioned Liran. Sorry, my friend Liran. He's an awesome artist. So, obsession with literal meaning of phrases. Now, I actually learnt today the equating a certain emotion with nostalgia, and these type of things have to be equated consciously. Yeah, he's got amazing art. I've tweeted some of his stuff. If you go right to the bottom of my Twitter feed, like 2 years ago or something, I tweeted some of his stuff. So it was pretty awesome. I did a YouTube video on the purpose of enjoyment about 2 years ago. I started to understand the purpose of fun and enjoyment. I was able to scientifically define it. And it's the same with nostalgia. Someone did that to me today. What happened was that I found a track that I just uploaded to YouTube, which I created when I was 22, back in 2003 in September. And I pulled out the CD. Anyone remembers CDs? And it's my writing. And I hold the CD, and I kid you not, it was like it was last week. I held it, and bang, I was back to being 22. And it was such a short time ago from that perspective, and yet it was such a long time ago. And that logical description, or the scientific description of that, is what I now understand to be nostalgia. Alright, so that's the first part. Literal phrases. I'm going to give you some examples of this. Confusion with personal interactions. Hyper-confusion with dealing with multiple conversations in a group-style format. And that's because group-style format has less logic in its transmission of information, but more emotion. So it's what people say in groups. I know, hey, oh yeah, like they do those type of things which don't have a literal meaning. So as I've shown people before, the way for me to understand, I've actually done this. If you go to YouTube at Gabsmack, I said how mathematics helps me understand humans or something like that. So just type in Gabsmack and mathematics, how mathematics helped me, something like that, and you'll find it. And I show a two-dimensional grid, and each word has a literal and emotional component. And for me, with autism, I've learnt to infer the emotional section in the same way that as mathematicians we infer the complex part of a real number. And the complex part is related to the square root of -1, so, you know, if anyone's done mathematics. So, hyperconfusion, we're dealing with multiple conversation in a group style. As I said before, there was a particular example where a student, and this has happened numerous times for me, a student wanted me to tutor them, and it would have taken them 1.5 hours to come to me, so I went to them. Mental prison, yeah. We have different types of mental prisons. Those were different. So instead of them traveling 1.5 hours to me, I traveled 45 minutes to them because it wasn't right that they should travel 1.5 hours, and I didn't charge them for that 45 minutes. Now, these are things that I don't recognize that I'm doing. I've asked other people to make notes about me, and so I've gotten all these notes, and I've taken some of them, and I thought I'd share them with you guys because you might see this in yourself or in family members. The next one was that if I was teaching somebody something and there was an answer I didn't know, in one particular case, I didn't know the answer, and so for 30 minutes I was trying to work it out, and I didn't charge them for the 30 minutes. But then I went home and spent 2 weeks obsessing on the problem until I solved it. And when I solved it, I then called up the student and spent another hour and a half explaining that to them, and there was no charge for any of that. Now, I hate saying that on myself because in my mind, that's what you would do. That's normal. But apparently this is what people are writing about me that they remember, which is pretty cool. You'll notice that anything that has an emotional value tends to not be recognized by the autist unless it's their own, but they're not aware that they're doing it. So things like the latest fashion, good business, well, it's bad business, but yeah. The latest fashion, you'll notice that I'm wearing this ripped singlet. I didn't even notice I was wearing it until I just read this just now. So there's no interest. The clothes are functional. Setting yourself up, yeah, that's true, yeah. And things like the latest gadgets and stuff like that, the technological aspect is very fascinating. So if there's an obsession there, whatever meets the autist's domain of obsession, then they'll be in love with it. But in terms of looking good for other people or that type of stuff, it tends to not occur because there is no... The biggest, most common characteristic with people on the spectrum is that they lack intuitive theory of mind, and only high-functioning autistics can develop that consciously. And conscious theory of mind is the ability to understand how other people might think or how they perceive you. The bodybuilding. Yeah, growing up in the ghetto of Bankstown, after I got bashed, I decided that I wanted to get really big so that no one would mess with me. So it was still functional. More aware. Yeah, I definitely became more aware as I got older. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Lebanon was the first time when I went there. They told me that I had to wear certain clothes, and then I wore this suit with thongs, or you call them flip-flops. So, and then I noticed that people criticized and said, you can't do that. Then I discovered gel, which I didn't understand why people at school, they had hair that could stay wet all day, and my hair would just be like an afro. And now you can see, like, you know, I'm trying to keep it down as much as I can. But it has to get really long to get heavy. It reminds me of Absalom, Absalom, the son of King Solomon. Anyway, so the abuse by teachers and students, that's something that you'll notice with someone with autism. The teachers were quite horrendous to me, actually. Here we go. Because you have to be conscious of your behavior in order to fit in with neurotypical society. It's not intuitive at all, like how to walk, taking time to walk in a certain way, to make sure that you're not interrupting people who are speaking. Mafu for the different. I love that one. That's a really good one. And to make sure that I'm not talking too loud, the volume, trying not to be distracted and disturbed by every single noise that's going on in the room and every single person's language, and seeing their mouth move and their eye rate blink, and knowing how their body is standing. I can stand in the same way, don't clench my fist, don't stress them out, and don't try not to move my head too much, or all these type of things. It's extremely exhausting, and so being in public can be extremely exhausting for someone with autism. And of course, this is not limited to people with autism, but it's a characteristic that bugs you. There you go. Bullies don't get beaten up more. Read my book, man. You'll enjoy it. I took down some pretty big bullies. Turn off the body language. But here is a problem with that, and this is one of the beauties of the story, for me, that I found amazing in my story, which is that, and I learned this when other people started reading the book, so it was their comments. By me taking these bullies down, it actually transferred the bully from outside to inside. And that's such a freaky concept. It's sort of like you can't paint a house without getting paint on yourself. And it doesn't matter how much you try, you know you're going to get little drops of paint on yourself. Or when you brush your teeth, if you not go right into the bloody sink, you're going to get a spot of toothpaste somewhere on the screen, and you've got to wipe it down. You turn into a bully. Yeah, you don't realize. And that's the thing about transformations, you don't actually realize. So if you really, really despise someone who's evil and you say you're a disgusting evil person, by doing that, you embody that very hatred. So you become that evil person. Yeah, I find it very fascinating. It's like you can't interact with water without getting wet. Something like that. And that's one of the key takeaways from me writing that story down and remembering it, that people love the fact that I could take down these guys. And there was once a time when people were chanting my name, like 100 people and that was probably 30 or 40, but it felt like 100, just chanting my name, just going like that, after I took down this dude who was older than us. And then I opened out my arms like I was like the gladiator, and that association, positive association, actually made me more disturbed, not less. And not get wet, just very carefully. Yeah, that's true too. So now it's very important that I limit my attacks on people to defense, or I try to, and I'm 90% successful. But yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stories in the book. We're going to get to it because I'm going to do my next bit on YouTube, and then I'll come back and talk to you guys about it. Overstimulation results in constant wearing of earplugs in public. That's what I do normally in public, unless I'm out on some like event. Like, where did I go? I went with my mum and dad to go to a 75th birthday of this lady that used to babysit me when I was a kid. And I didn't wear earplugs, so that was a disaster, man. It was a disaster. I'm writing about that in my second book. It's you'll enjoy it. So, retreating to solitude in order to regenerate mental and emotional states. People with hypersensitivity to external stimuli also have this issue. So many gifted people have this problem too, not just people who are autistic. Don't be silly, my friend, don't apologize. So there was once a time when my boss from work called me, and here is a situation that you'll all know, and you'll be surprised how I took it. The boss said to me, "We need you to work." Now, I was really, really stressed because I didn't want to work. Now, why did that stress me? You might know someone else who's with autism and you think, why are they getting so stressed over a simple question? Because it's not a simple question to someone with autism. What I understood that to mean was the literal thing, which was we need you. In other words, if you don't come in, our company's going to collapse. That's how I took it, because that's exactly the literal interpretation of we need you to work, right? I do. So people might be laughing right now. I don't know, but that's the reaction. Yeah, need and you, right? So it's not only that we need, but you, your son also. Ah, cool, awesome. And that really, really stressed me out until it was explained to me by somebody that need is a hyperbole. It means that we need to fill this position today. We have many people we can call, but you're reliable, so we call you first. That's actually what it means. So I have to translate that in the word on a personal level. Very true. I had to translate that in my head too, that new version, which I now know how to do. So if someone says we need you to work, if I can work, I will. If I can't, I'll say I'm sorry, I can't. And that's it. Such a small little thing, and someone with autism, that can really destroy their day or their week. So important. Remember that one. All right. So I consider this a lie and never knew exactly what he goes through on a daily basis. Ah, awesome. Well, there you go. Well, welcome to us. So it's like wanting you to work. Yeah, he's 24. Oh, I know that too well. 24 was the year just before I committed suicide and my father found my body. Which meant I didn't bleed out and I ended up in a coma instead. So thanks, Dad. Yeah, if you want to know more, you can go to my Gabsmack channel on YouTube, and I have an autism playlist, and I also have a Speaking Human playlist. If you listen to Speaking Human, it's an audio version of my book. It's a very long discussion of my book, and then you can decide if you want to get the book or not. But either way, it's all there for free up there. You can have a look. So the next one was the biggest problem I had in my early 20s was similar to this, analogous to this, to the need you to work. It was how are you? So that was one of the first ones I've taught you guys. With lateness, I can't stand it. If someone says I'll be there at 3 and they come at 3:01, I call them a liar and a lazy shit and disrespectful. I'm gonna get into that in a second. Actually, something similar. So I had to learn how to say good. How are you? Before, if someone said how are you, I'd never answer. And then when I started to answer, I would assume that they wanted to know how my condition was, and I couldn't understand why. So I'd ask people, why do you want to know? But then I learned to say good. How are you? You'd hate me. No, not anymore. I've learned now that humans don't act the way I do. I've learned that it's a language difference. Even though we're both speaking English, it's a different language. It's a different use of that language. So the next one is when I see a store where it says back in 5 minutes. Two problems. The first one is it tells you we're back in 5 minutes, but it doesn't tell you from which point in time. So when you get there, you don't know if they've already been gone for 4 minutes or for 1 minute. So you have to wait the full 5 minutes. That's annoying. The second thing is when they come back and it's more than 5 minutes. So now I don't know if they lied with the 5 minutes from when I got there, or if it was 5 minutes plus when they came back, plus the time before I came. Really drives me up the wall, like you wouldn't believe. So now I've come to learn that the back in 5 minutes actually means I'm stepping away because I have something to attend to. I will come back as soon as I can. Different use of the language. Autism. That's what I'm talking about. Next one. Somebody asked me once, why do you hate lying? Everyone lies. And I lost my mind because I said, are you calling me a liar? Do you mind people turning up without calling? I don't like that at all. I don't like meeting people in person in general. It has to be a really good reason. So I've had many situations like this, especially when I was in Lebanon, and they would say something, and I'd say, are you calling me a liar, or why are you making fun of me? And they'd be like, what are you on about? What's wrong with you, right? So what I took literally was the word everyone. Everyone obviously includes me, because I'm a one, and every is all ones, right? So each one specifically. And then it was explained to me that when someone says everyone lies, that's not what, they're not calling you a liar. What they're saying is that there comes a point in time in everyone's life where they say something which is not exactly accurate, or at least not perceived to be accurate. That's the scientific version. This is what I do when analyzing news articles, by the way. This is why a lot of people, this is what a lot of people tell me when we analyze our news articles. You just use the author's gene, I consider. Now, there was another thing that happened, which I forgot about. Oh, yes. So people had pre-ordered my book before it was published, including Liran and a few others who know Eva, etc. And the book wasn't, I had not raised enough money to get the books to the people when I said I would get it to them. Some can misuse those weapons, and some men can misuse their weapon of force as well. So I think that domestic violence, physical domestic violence and emotional domestic violence are manifestations of the same sociopathic or narcissistic tendencies. And that can manifest in either men or women, I would say, if you abstract it out to that level. It just comes out in different ways. Yeah, we use the tools we have. Yeah. So it's like, a murderer can use a gun or a hammer, and the damage they cause will be different, but it comes from the same person, something like that. Yeah. So what have we got here? I ended up, according to people, this was a huge deal. This came up in 3 different people writing to me. I sold my car so that I could raise the money to publish the book, and I have never bought a car since. I ride my Vespa everywhere for the last 2 years so I could get the book out. Hello. And for me, that's normal. It's logical to do that. It's not altruistic. It's not amazing. It's not anything. It's like, I said I would do something. I'm going to do it. What do I have to do? There's a car. I can sell it. I can ride my Vespa. No problem. And apparently that's unusual. So you'll find that with people with autism. They have a very black and white view, I guess you want to call it. So what do we got here? Now, I'm just going to quickly talk about theory of mind. So this is something that most neurotypicals take for granted. One of the phenotypes of theory of mind, or the expressions of it, is if you go to my YouTube channel, Gabsmacked, type in Gabsmacked facial expressions, and you will see that I was describing how I can ascertain people's feelings based upon their facial expressions and how I analyze it geometrically. So I look at the positions. What I do is I consciously take people's main features and then map them onto a geometric structure and see if there are parallels or not parallels, or which degree they bend, etc., to figure out if they're happy, sad, angry, disgusted, confused. That's what I actually do to do that. And that's conscious theory of mind, where I'm consciously, performing algorithms in my head to understand how to act with other people. Whereas most human beings who have inbuilt or intuitive theory of mind don't do that. They just see a face and they just know. They don't know how they know. They just know if it's happy, sad, etc. We did a survey. I had 200 people watching that one, and not one single person could tell me why this face meant happy, sad, or anything else. And I was explaining it. So that was quite amazing to me, actually. Before that, I thought everyone did it the way I did it, until my test in 2014. All right, so that's one example of theory of mind. Theory of mind is the ability to physically see. So without it, it's called mind blindness. So people with autism have something called mind blindness, where you physically cannot see how you look to other people. You may be immune to someone who makes normal people drained. In a way, yes. Yeah. So I don't suffer embarrassment the way most people do. I can go into a shop and just wear this sign, why are you leaving the house like that? And then I have to put on a shirt because my mum told me. Not because, to me, I get embarrassed, or I don't feel that. There's no feeling there because I can't see what I look like to other people. I have to just imagine it. Can mind blindness be selective? That's interesting. I don't know. In my case, I know it's selective because I've learnt how to see via different ways in certain things, but I'm still blind in other things. So in that case, it's selective because the mind blindness has been modulated by a conscious building of theory of mind. But if someone has mind blindness in general, it's basically just related to theory of mind completely. And some of my medium functioning autistic students will talk with their mouth open and when they're chewing. So that's something you'll notice. These are the little things that when I meet someone with autism, I can tell immediately, because they exhibit all of these things that I have learnt to hide. So I'm very conscious when I eat now, because I learnt a lot. Over 7 years, I learnt a huge amount of behavioral skills. And one of those was eating. So when I eat, I don't want to make noises in certain ways. I don't want to open my mouth. Anyway, so little things like that. But someone who is medium functioning, who doesn't have the ability that high functioning autistics have to compensate, will eat like this, because it's more efficient to eat that way. It's so annoying to have to close your mouth, and it takes so much longer to eat. So they will just, and the fruit's coming out of their mouth, and you will notice that, right? And you'll think, oh, they're rude or they're a pig or whatever, and that's not true. They just physically can't see what you're seeing. They can't even Their brain doesn't tell them to imagine how rude you're looking. You never know. Look, when I see someone do something that's consistent with autistic behavior, I don't immediately think they're autistic. I start ruling out all the other possibilities. But, you start ruling them out. So are they poor? Are they on drugs? Are they homeless? You start to get rid of all of that. And then what's left? Then they start doing other things. And then you match it all up. You're like, bang, that's autism. Yeah, you can tell. I can tell very quickly, like, especially with 2-year-olds, I find the way that they behave is unbelievably unique. And you can tell. I remember once I went into this lady's house and this kid answered the door. He was about 4 years old. And I went to the mum. I said, he's got autism. And apparently people don't like that. Strangely dressed. Yeah. Strangely dressed and that type of bizarre human behavior, autism. So when I grew up, I used to do things like put my straw into someone's cup of water and then put the water in my mouth and then put the straw back in. So they would think I was obscene, I was rude, I was, and I would be very maltreated by other kids and other adults for doing that because they thought I was rude, I was a prick, blah, 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 for deliberately doing things like that. And I wasn't. I thought that's the logical thing to do. I used to stick my finger in people's ice cream, no pun intended, because I wanted to try the ice cream. Burping and farting in public, I used to do that. I didn't know that was rude. Up until 17, actually, I figured that out. So, yeah, I tell you, man, it was a bad life growing up. I didn't make it easy for myself, unfortunately. Anyway, so that's everything, guys. That's a little update on autism. I thought that would help you a little. I have a mathematics degree, yeah. Yes, I do. When I was diagnosed with savantism, I started doing as much as I could to prove them wrong. I have a major in applied mathematics and a minor in quantum mechanics or physics with a major in the minor of quantum mechanics. And then I did a thesis, an honors thesis in quantum dark matter. So there you go, that's life. Anyway, that's all I have, guys. Don't forget, physics major, very cool. Didn't that just backfire in a good way? Which thing backfired? You proved them. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I proved that I did have savantism, yeah. But that wasn't the only thing, but yeah, I still couldn't believe it. I just kept, you're a physics dropout. I actually dropped out of uni 4 times in my early 20s. Couldn't focus, couldn't be around people. I was constantly depressed, miserable. So I ended up going back to uni, yeah, only when I was 34 and finished at 36, and then I did the honors one at 37, which is now. So here we are. All right, guys, I will love you and leave you. Thanks for your time. And until next time, don't forget to take life one smack at a time. All right, guys, love you and leave you, man.